Hello, everyone. Happy to see you. 2 days of active work. Everybody is still interested, and so many enthusiasts of startups and technologies simultaneously enjoying different programs, different speakers. Our topic is special and rather short to discuss such an important theme. And can technologies and innovation make life better for everyone? Not only for me, but also for you, for Gunita, for others. And I would like to skip the introduction because this was just done and Raph was already sitting here on the stage. So obviously you know who we are or who we are in our previous lives till we came to TechChill. But I wanted to start straight away with one slight provocative question. Is technological progress and everything where we speak and spoke all those days about techniques, how exactly technologies are going to be developed, how to make money with it, how to find our role in this rather sophisticated ecosystem, but is technological progress a greater good? Do we go for good or do we go for our own competitiveness? And for competitiveness of our companies, and that's the way life goes. So we are not anymore riding horses, we are driving cars. Are we really more happy than our ancestors 200 years ago, where those technologies were not available? That is, of course, a bit philosophical question. Without technologies, we stay out of the game. We are not competitive, we lose our job, we cannot be part of the progress. But is technology a greater good or greater evil, or it really depends how human beings use that? And I wouldn't like to simplify so heavily to the kind of a question that with nuclear you can make a bomb, and with nuclear you can make energy and make life better. But what do you think all these days of TechChill going for startups with great ideas, making these ideas to progress and to change the shape of the world? Do we shape the world to the better or not? Gunita, let's start with you.
Well, I actually truly believe when we look back on the history, since we remember ourselves, we've been trying to augment our skills and kind of dress them into the technology. And throughout that experiment, trying to build a human being thinking into the machine, we've been discovering a lot about ourselves. We've been always trying to move faster, think faster, be more efficient, and just sort of, in a way, I look at the technology as a mirror of a human beings, or our aim to achieve something to realize about ourselves. So I can't imagine technology being, in a way, going for a bad if actually it is a discovery process about our human race or human being, of our purpose on the world, probably.
Yeah, in a way we have no choice. We are supposed to face development and acceleration of technology changing the shape of our life. The question is of our role. What do you think, Raph?
Oh, I do believe that we just talked about this actually, the importance of putting some sort of rules. I don't like the word regulation because it's negative in a way, but I like the fact that there are some sort of human consciousness and barriers and things that shouldn't be done. Now, there's always excesses, but if we put a minimum of safeguards in the way we implement those technologies, then we can actually get the benefit out of it rather than just a negative effect of it. We're always going to have to fight evil, right? There's no way around it. There's always going to be evil in the world. But I believe that what we're bringing to the world right now, and you just mentioned this, is actually got a positive force in a nice, improving kind of way.
So you generalize, we all gave. For instance, yesterday was very interesting also presentation where autonomous driving as a goal was commented, and how BMW and startup support scheme within BMW was advertising, and they were even offering to think about several companies making it better. And then I spoke with a friend who was very fond of this discussion, smart cities versus living cities. So what is better? Do you want to be so damn smart, or you want to go to Barcelona and then they are as smart? They say we are even more smart because we had this human factor to all your smartness. And then you just, we went with our family to Florence And then there is a very nice Italian driver. He tells many things about the city, drives, and then I imagine I just jump into the autonomous driven car. I need an entertainer to hire who will tell me something about it, or then I can switch it on to a kind of a not anymore tape recorder, of course, and then I can listen about that, but I want this human being. And if we fire them, they don't have this job anymore, and then we pay them unemployment fee for the same, doing nothing.
I think one is not mutually exclusive. You can have smart cities that are not dumb cities, that are not entertaining either. You can live in a smart city. Actually, what they're trying to do is improve your livelihood and your ability to have a better life in those cities. Doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. And I'll let maybe Felix talk about what we can do on autonomous cars and improve the fact that you're going to have a different kind of interaction.
As a moderator, it would be very strange if I would claim no progress and let's turn to all the good times. I was a bit provoking you. I'm happy. Felix, what do you have to say?
Well, how much time we have? No, look, I mean, I think this question of, does technology make us more happy on a personal level? It's really the question, do you zoom out of world history, or do you look at it from an individual perspective? And of course, technology per se doesn't make us happy. Having an iPhone doesn't make you happy, and there's a lot of backlash, how that makes you even unhappy, and that there might be correlation between teenage depression and so on, teenage depression and social feeds. That is true, and of course, basically, people have been happiest when they were hunters and gatherers, because, who wouldn't be a hunter and gatherer? You get run around nature and hunt for stuff and eat by the campfire and, be with your little clan. That's really cool. But of course, if you zoom out, since the scientific revolution, overall, just if you look at the sheer numbers, we are living in an amazing time, in the sense that we lifted 1 billion people out of poverty in the last 20 years, which is insane if you think about it. The combination of capitalism and the scientific revolution, and even arguably imperialism, was of course a driving force. But things change, and we live in exponential times. And the question is now, what is the next big step? And of course, we have these challenges that right now, whether it's connectivity issues, latency issues, still 3 billion people basically not able to do contracts, not able to borrow money the same way we do it. So basically, no way to create wealth for themselves. So around the corner comes blockchain. And it actually seems to be offering a solution for just that. And yes, we've only been talking about it 3-4 years, but it's already pretty clear on the horizon how this is going to play out. You're going to be able to decentralize trust, which right now is very complicated, and it needs institutions, it needs governments, it needs banks. If we can decentralize all of that and get rid of it, and have people to be able to lend money, borrow money, and do contracts in a decentralized way, then we're going to have the next 3 billion people basically being lifted out of poverty. So if you zoom out, we live in crazy, amazing times. On an individual level, no, you might not be happy all the time. If you were a hunter-gatherer and then you were forced to become a farmer, probably it made you very unhappy, because it actually sucks to be a farmer.
Even though you also generalize that feeding as big number of the population of the world as possible, and using for that technologies kind of would make us general happiness without individual level. But you mentioned that whether iPhone makes you happy. Of course, you represent SamsungNEXT, you're head of Europe. Maybe Samsung makes you happy.
Yeah, of course, the S8 makes you happy.
Cool.
But I was actually
saying, iPhone makes me happy.
I was actually arguing it makes you unhappy.
Okay,
Felix, can you talk about the iPhone?
Once you started name even iPhone, sorry for this kind of conflict of Android versus iOS. Just tell me, which innovation, I do not mean gadget in particular, what do you think is the breakthrough, or what would you like to comment? I know you might say something, because I was warning all three of you that I will ask you what kind of invention or innovation might be disruptive. This is not a competition now who has just smart ideas. We will just touch a little bit this issue.
Yeah, I want to touch on that as well. But I think my doubt about, let's say, this technological drive versus human well-being lays in the fact that we innovate a lot from technological side, but there has been little of innovation from a social, from political side. We're still living in the same political systems as we used to live centuries and centuries ago. And I believe that the strong position on the human sort of development lays into our ability to also innovate in the forms of democracy, in the forms of how we build societies, which are not hidden just under these smart city slogans or smart whatever ecosystem slogans, but are built truly on the new forms of decision-making, new forms of governance as well. When it comes to technological boost or acceleration, which in future I kind of foresee having a huge impact, is quantum computing and basically accelerating our all powers of technological consumption, availability, accessibility.
So Gunita, one extra question, because you just challenged us, saying that innovation in managing society, but using technological inventions of doing that, or innovation in a way of thinking itself. So using the progress to do different form of democracy or electronic voting or whatsoever, or you expect that the world might get more united or better ruled or better governed just because people start thinking differently? What do you mean by innovation?
The thinking is involved because so far we've been looking at the technological innovation as how to deploy it, how we can use tech to move forward, not vice versa, and how we can innovate as a society and which tool, which means we should sort of take in order to progress in that context. In that regard, I think this decentralization and in some part as well, cryptocurrencies in some way, or crypto thinking in that matter, based on decentralized mindset, may affect that. But again, our decision is how we apply this technology, and do we see beyond just like kind of financial gain or like short-term goal?
And whose role is it? Politicians, inventors, society itself? Because if you speak to the critical mass of people, just do it, human beings together. But somebody should take leadership. But I don't mean you should name the name, but is it politicians to do that? Because you said,
but then we again get back to this representative or a democracy where someone should take responsibility or be, represented by our vote. We have to innovate in the way of how we do that.
But it's a constant negotiation between all stakeholders, right? And I mean that's why I mentioned the scientific revolution earlier. That's really when our current method of evolving science and technology has started, and it's always been a conflict. There's always been a new technology that makes new things possible, and then you have to renegotiate the societal contract around it, right? And have to think about how to deal with it, whether that's nuclear energy or in the future self-driving cars. And of course, there's always disruptions, and there will always be friction, and if you zoom in, there will always going to be people that are miserable for a while. And I'm not saying that's a good thing, and I'm not saying that has to be that way, but if you zoom out on the net, we are making progress as a human species, right? So, I mean, we have to keep in mind that a lot of these things, like, yes, of course, with blockchain, you can imagine a different way to do democracy, but that's just been around 3-4 years, right? So, of course, we haven't figured it out. We need to see how that works. Right now, we elect governments because they're a central authority, and they actually get shit done for us. Maybe in the future, there will be other ways of getting shit done, more directly, more peer-to-peer, but that's all pretty new. I mean, give it 5 years. I think on the general, there's really no reason to be negative about any of this.
Raph, do you have anything to add?
No.
Good, perfect. Then we have saved something. We decided we were talking also whether we should ask you, the audience, and we decided not to do that in this particular panel with a purpose, because we already felt that we will go to too high materia. How do we make the world better? And then everybody will have his opinion. But I still would like to elaborate a part of political and society management problems, coming more close to those startups who are here, who think what exactly, either circular economy or sharing economy or different, absolutely new trends, because last 2 decades is still a very new trend. When we went to school, some of us, there was not even first email sent, and that speed, how do we communicate, how do we make things coordinated, is absolutely amazing, but not amazing for a big part of you, rather young part of our society here in TechChill. And so I really think that we should also think what exactly from the forms of disruptive technologies a part of society management and more in forms of technology might be worth to comment, and your attitude towards it. I give you one more clue whilst you are thinking. For instance, Taxify was here rather interestingly, in my opinion, and precisely describing their model of business. Then there was no contradiction, Taxify versus Uber in that sense. And I know something in the background, what happens with negotiations of our government, that in general, doing good things, having Airbnb chances or Booking.com or other examples of sharing economy, making people pollute less to save money, not to build too many houses, to use what world has already and to share this infrastructure. And all of a sudden, part of that, I would say, business society decides to avoid any tax payments and just to become playing with the different rules. It is not a hint towards Taxify at all. And then all of a sudden, government, those bureaucrats who look very much like me, but also some are even worse. I mean, not worth looking, but worse bureaucrats. We are, with Magnetic Latvia stage, I would say rather accessible, rather modern. And I invite all of you also to iNovus festival. It is very family-friendly startup and innovation festival, which will take place this year in so outdoor environment, fantastic. But let us again help me, you, my colleagues here on the stage. What do you think we should do in bringing together those who are real decision makers and who are kind of old school representatives and disruptive technologies coming into our life? Gunita, you wanted, I saw you first wanted and then you were hesitant. Raph.
They heard about me enough, honestly. Okay. There's a lot of questions in your speech, so I'm going to try to get one.
Because you said no to my first, and then I thought how to fill your pause.
So I'm going to take the last piece of information, which is actually an interesting one. I believe bringing technology to the world that will make an impact, and that's part of what I was discussing before, has to come from entrepreneurs. They are the innovators of this world. They are the ones that have those ideas. They need help to bring it to market. They cannot do it on their own. And that's what, all those different elements, or those different parties that you mentioned, both from the government standpoint, with less regulation to help bring innovation, from the investors, from the accelerators, from the partners, from any kind of support they can get, will drive us to that next generation of innovative, life-improving technologies. So if you want to get the example of smart city. Smart city, for me, we have 5 programs around the world targeting smart city. We have tons of really interesting solutions coming to us. Most of the time, the number one failure comes from the fact that it cannot breach that level of implementation when they come and start to the city, because it's an administration barrier most of the time. And so that's where, if you, as innovators, we go and see those particular administrative barriers, we help them understand that they need those guys, then you lower the barrier to entry, and that's how it works.
Yeah, I think this question is very interesting. The same refers to the same like innovation of governance in general, and how do we get, it's the same as startups collaborating with corporates. There's the biggest problem is the cultural difference, the mindset difference, not like, like kind of the actual just being 2 companies.
Procurement is the word you're looking for.
Yeah, I guess so in this case. And the same with governments, there's like two types of like mindsets. And until the point when we rub our shoulders and like when we, almost like physically kind of observe the information from one to another and transmit that, until the point when like governments are able to apply the agile, the sort of iterative mindset, not system. A lot of governments, a lot of corporates again see agile and see iteration as systematic approach, as opposed to having that mindset towards innovation. So therefore, our governments are not able to sort of to move fast and pick up those new innovations because they are thinking, well, self-driving cars, something super huge, big. We have to, save funds for years for implementing the infrastructure. They're thinking like decades even, They're not thinking, okay, let's launch this thing in one block of a city or one street of a city or something, And then let's see what happens. Then put some more money and therefore, kind of iterate and develop that system. And I think this mindset is missing and therefore new startups are, kind of facing the wall and on being able to implement that solution. So, but if we want, the governments and states and countries to generate the more higher value-added economies where the startups want to live, we have to find a way in how to respond to them from other side. So, everyone gains from this process, and it's a win-win situation. And if we in core, think about it and think about the future of our state, of our economy, small or big, then we should find a way in how to, collaborate.
Yeah, I'm kind of lost where we are, but I think.
No, I can tell you. I would like
think,
at this point not maybe to continue that if you are lost or you are not lost.
No, I think no, I'm not lost. I was just joking.
Okay,
But I think part of your question was, for the startups here concretely, what are interesting problems to work on, and what kind of things you can do.
Exactly, but at the end, I can tell you, and we have rather little time left. At the end, I still will. I just. Do not interrupt you.
No.
With a little comment. What I will ask at the very end, all of you, exactly with what I started. So, because Gunita said it is for everyone's good, and we were speaking those days about technology, absolutely fast, super fast development, and is it really for everyone's good in general, or it is necessity to compete with each other? Countries do compete, companies do compete. We as a countries, Latvia is measured versus Estonia, how to raise GDP, and if we are out of the game, and then we are kind of a losers, so to say. And that is to me very much important that all together, I simplify my question. Will we be really certain at the end of our discussion that we are more happy now because of technologies than our predecessors 200 years ago riding horses, having no internet? But this is not a question yet, it is for you to think, and you wanted to say something different.
Yeah, I'm glad I answered that question in the very beginning. I think for startups, it's always an interesting question. Is like what should you work on? And I sometimes hear this thing like, everything has been done. It seems kind of boring, and it's just pizza delivery services, and we're catering to the 1% to make their life more comfortable. And then at the same time, you hear about like crazy mind-blowing stuff like quantum computing, or the combination of AR and VR and quantum computing and AI basically makes sort of incredible computing experiences possible, like the way we never experienced computing before. So it's kind of like, where are we? Are we on this incremental path, or are we on this like exponential, insane path? And I think the answer is it's both, right? So we're on this S-curve. So I think right now we're seeing incremental improvements on stuff that was invented 10, 15 years ago. And maybe when people were before the web, TCP/IP was there, and email was there, and people probably realized how mind-blowing this is, or some people did. Yet, IBM was still iterating on the electric typewriter. So I think now we're in this phase where you can do both, right? You can have large commercial success by iterating on stuff that is more or less just putting people in the comfort zone and making things more efficient. Does it make some people happier? Probably, but not everyone can afford it. At the same time, there's this probably, in 5 to 10 years, we're going to see the effects of this incredible stuff that's being sort of in the labs still. And I think that's, if I were to start a new company now, I would focus on those things, because I think they really have the potential to leap, humanity forward in a positive way. There will be disruption, but I think overall it will be positive. So, it's up to you a little bit as an entrepreneur on what you want to focus. I think both is possible at this moment. One thing is more risk, but more reward, and the other is sort of more incremental.
When did you start SamsungNEXT in Europe? How old is Europe branch, so to say, SamsungNEXT?
Oh, just last year. But we
just
have
1 year.
Yeah.
So in that sense, you are young.
I'm young, yes, in many sense. No, we only started last year. There's other offices in Silicon Valley. The group is 4 years old, but we started here last year. Yeah.
You were just mentioning whether it makes people happier, and of course, many people know this phenomenon of Bhutan, where they suggested to measure index of subjective well-being. So not how your GDP is or how super fast your computers are, but if you
Andris,
compare...
I think we're out of time.
Yes. Thank you.
I'm being called up for this.
Do you have a last comment on it? Raph?
I'm an eternal optimist. Look at this room, full of people that work in technology. If they didn't believe in the good future, they wouldn't be here anyway. So let's do it.
They are exceptional people here, They are those who believe totally in technology. They came to TechChill. This was like...
Keep believing, people.
Okay, Gunita, your last comment, and we have to
Thanks,
end
guys.
it up.
Keep it running and make the technology good for people.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
thank you.
So thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.